Hello, I'm Jessica McCullough. I am the social media manager here at Masterbooks. I'm pleased to be joined today by Bridget Mosley. Bridget created the Wowza Brain cognitive-based reading program back in 2008. Today, we're going to talk about the first part of that program, Better Letters, which is available at masterbookacademy.com. Thank you for joining me today, Bridget.
My pleasure.
Would you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. I'm a former homeschooling mom. I have two kids and they're both in their 20s now. I have worked as a learning specialist for over 30 years, worked with probably 2,000 kids and their families in the capacity of as a classroom teacher, an education consultant, director of a reading clinic. And right now I have an online private practice and I work as a consultant as well.
Okay, great. What prompted you to create the Wowza Brain program?
It was about 20 years ago, and I was working at a childhood education center, and I had heard that a lot of the parents were really strapped, and some were even taking out second mortgages so they could pay the tuition for their kids, and that really bothered me because these techniques are not rocket science. They really aren't. And so I just felt prodded by the Holy Spirit to just write a program up thinking, I can train parents to do this and they really can do it for themselves and for their own kids.
Absolutely. So can you tell us, how is Wowza Brain training different from other early reading programs?
We're really different. And the reason is most other programs get your kids to mastery. And for some skills, mastery is great. If I'm learning, the capitals of the states and the like, I don't need to automate that. But what we do in Wowza Brain is we teach the ABCs to automaticity. Now, mastery as a level is basically I have to work for something, I pull it out with some labor and some effort. Automaticity is when it's effortless. I know it so deeply, I don't have to think about it. It just pops for me. And as you can imagine, if I'm learning the code of our language, I don't want to think about what these letters say. I want to absolutely pop them without effort so I can concentrate on the words I'm learning to read. So that's one thing that really sets us apart. The other thing that sets us apart. Yeah. And the other thing that sets us apart is in the manual and in the videos, I'm actually teaching you some really brain-friendly techniques about how to teach not only the letters, but honestly, anything. There are some techniques that I show you like space practice, backblasting, deep learning, just various techniques like that you could use not only for the Better Letters program, but you could use with any kid teaching anything, whether that's chemistry or history or whatever. It's just good learning theory. So it's almost like there's a freebie in there, a second course on good learning techniques.
That's awesome. So here at Masterbooks, we place a great emphasis on biblical worldview. How did viewing brain development through the lens of a biblical worldview impact the creation of Wowza Brain?
Oh, having studied this for so long now, for me, Psalm 139:14, we are fearfully and wonderfully made, really rings true. I would say fearfully in that the brain is very complex and they really don't even understand it after even all these years and the various tests that they can run now and follow the brain and how we track and learn things. Wonderfully made in that there's this concept called plasticity that you'll read about all the time in the brain research. And it basically means I'm never stuck. If I am exposed to something daily, gently, safely, and I get lots of practice, the brain is really capable of learning. And that's because of how God loves us and has wired us. And when I see that word so often in the research, plasticity, I see the word grace and love, God's love for us, his care for us, that he rewards our hard work.
Absolutely. That's really a beautiful way to look at the way God designed the brain to work. So now that we've kind of talked a little bit about the heart and the purpose behind Wowza Brain, I'd like to talk a little bit about the practical side of using specifically the Better Letters program. Can you tell us which students would benefit from Better Letters?
Honestly, any student, all students. The real goal when we teach ABCs to our kids and they're just starting out is that they learn the name and the letter sound and shape to this deep level of automaticity. I don't want kids working for that when they see, CUP cup. Before they get there, they should have this practice. So kids who have that and have that deep exposure to the letters, when they come to sounding out words, they really pop those words. So their first associations with print is positive. They think, oh, I'm a reader. This is fun. I like this. Unfortunately, and as you can imagine, most of the kids I work didn't get that positive first exposure. They didn't learn this to automaticity. They learned it to mastery. It wasn't enough for their brains. They needed to learn it to automaticity. So they had exposure to print. And what their takeaway was, I'm stupid. And it's a very strong association they make, and it's hard to break them out of it. So honestly, I think this program would be great for all kids.
Awesome. That's wonderful. And then so if a parent decides that they want to use the program, before they begin it with their student, what should they do?
There's a section in the course that says before you begin, and it's got a bunch of videos and articles, and it's basically an overview. We explain, for example, we use a metronome, and it's really the metronome that gets you from mastery to automaticity. It's just the greatest technique. It came out in the 60s. It's an old one. Very powerful. We explain that, how to use it, why to use it. We talk about being brain friendly. We talk about how important it is for the brain to be safe so it can learn. And we just cover some other things like how to keep your kid focused, how to improve behavior, just lots of little tips that you can use as a coach. So to cover and go through that material before you start your child would be a wise thing to do.
Okay, great. It's almost like a toolbox for the parent to use.
Exactly.
And even like you mentioned before, some of those tools can be utilized in many areas of learning, which is really exciting. So then once the parent has reviewed that entire before you begin section, they're able to jump right into starting the program. They also have the opportunity, if they want to print all the materials at the beginning, or they could print them as they go along. And that is really great because so many parents have different types of preparation styles that they prefer. So that makes it really user-friendly. So can you go ahead and tell us, what does a day look like while using Better Letters? For instance, how long would a session of games take? And is the parent with the student the entire time? How do parents know when to add in the storybooks? Can you just talk about how to actually use it in the day-to-day?
Sure. The brain research is very clear. If we want to automate a task, it needs to be practiced daily. So in our program, we do ask you to practice daily, and we mean, 5 days a week. We keep it short because brain research recommends that, especially for the little guys, about 10 to 15 minutes. What you do is you start with the letter games, and you go through the process of automating it. You'll know through the steps in the metronome when you've automated a letter. The thing is, we never leave a single letter, though, because we know review is so critical to developing this automaticity. So as I learn letters, I review them, and I just keep adding one on. And the schedule, the daily schedule, helps you, bring those in accordingly. We also have these storybooks that teach the 25 most common sight words. And again, with the storybooks, it's a similar paradigm. You can kind of think of it as a piece of music. I introduce a storybook to my child. We practice it. We get very smooth and fluent. And we go back and we reread the book often. And we keep adding on until we've covered all the books. And the parent is absolutely essential. We actually refer to parents as coaches, and you are key to this process because you're going to help your child first master the letter. Then you're going to help your child play this letter game on beat so your child can automate the letter. But you definitely need to be there, and you're monitoring, is my child on beat? Yes. Oh, great. Let's move up a level. Let's move up the tempo. And that even builds greater and stronger automaticity.
Awesome. Thank you. Are there any additional supplies that parents should have on hand while they're going through Better Letters?
Just one. Everything's there for you except the metronome. And the cool thing nowadays is with our apps, you can download a free app, a free metronome through the app stores. And there's no cost to these. And there's many out there, and any one you pick would work fine.
Awesome. And I know I actually started using the program with my son, and he's really enjoying it. So we're having so much fun with that. And I noticed in there you also recommend some type of a reward system. And
Yes.
so he's been having a blast with that. And we've been able to kind of pick rewards based on what works for our family.
Yes.
And we are using dice, which is one of the ideas that you had given in the program. So if parents have dice, that's a simple way to kind of, have a reward system going to count our points.
And there are apps for that too, Jessica.
Well, that's true. I think there's an app for almost anything now, isn't there?
It's really fun.
So you did mention the schedule, and that is included in the course. But we do understand that all children are really unique individuals, just like you brought up earlier, where, the Bible even tells us we're fearfully and wonderfully made. So the schedule really should serve more as a guide than it is a strict rule book. Will you talk to us about maybe a few tips on being aware of whether I should slow down for my student or stick with the schedule, or even push forward at a faster pace than the schedule has?
I really love this method because it absolutely is thinking about that all the time. And that's because when I'm working with my child, I start one of the letter games, and we say it's offbeat, so you're not using the metronome. When my child gets smooth and comfortable, I add the metronome. And it can be tricky, I'm sure, as you saw with your son, especially for younger kids, to get on beat. It takes a little time. But the thing is, the metronome is always letting me know when my kid has it. And if they do, that's when I know, that's my cue as a coach to move up a level. So I love this program because it's written to meet kids where they are, not where they're supposed to be, but actually where they are. And we move accordingly, and we move in very small steps. So it feels safe.
Awesome. So really, like we said, the schedule should kind of serve as a guide to know when to, or what exactly to introduce next, but we should be following our students' progression with their ability to automate the letters and the storybooks in order to add in the next ones, is what it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, and there's really no guessing game here. I know in some programs, and it's just the nature of the program, but the way this is designed, it's really clear when they're ready to move on. And that I think for a parent, that feels good.
Yes. And for me using it with my son, one of the neat parts about it is that, just like you mentioned, it takes the guessing away for me. But my son also knows what he needs to get to in order to get to the next letter, which is exciting for him because he knows the expectations then.
Yeah, I've noticed some of the kids, and I think it's wonderful. They're just competitive. That's a good thing. And they know, oh, I made progress. It's very clear, and you check it off on the speed box. And again, that just feels good.
Absolutely. Yes. And I've been letting him do the check marks, and he's loving that.
Awesome.
Okay. So upon completion of Better Letters with automaticity, of all the games and the sight word storybooks, what can parents expect to see in their students' letter and reading skills?
This is just, again, what I love about the program. Once kids have finished this, they are primed for print. Their brain can't help it. They've been exposed to these sounds so often and had to do it at such high speed that when they get to those CVC words like, cup, and they have those sight words already learned. They start getting into those new readers for the first time. They're excited because they're ready. They know I'm a reader. And again, that's what we want for kids. And we want them ready for print and that wonderful world of print. And we want them ready to soon be reading their own Bibles. But we need to do this work first, but they will be ready.
That is so exciting. I think all parents love to see their children enjoy learning. Mm-hmm. And this is a tool that really facilitates that process to bring enjoyment to that. Mm-hmm. So that is really great. Kind of to close us out for the day, would you share a word of encouragement with those walking through a learning difference with their child?
I think we all have learning differences. And if we can just remember that, what areas do you struggle in and what helps? And we know, and I can tell you after 30 years of working with kids who have struggled, a lot of times the answer is they just need more practice. They just need a little more review. And so if you are hitting that wall, and it happens all to us all the time, just to remember, have we practiced enough? Could we practice a little more frequently? And that I found over the years has been really encouraging to me as a teacher and a parent.
Great. Thank you so much. I know that Better Letters is going to be an invaluable resource to so many families. And I look forward to hearing the testimonies that are going to come in because of this program. Thank you so much, Bridget. It was an honor to have you explain this to us today.
Such a pleasure, Jessica. Thank you.
Yes. So to see a preview of Better Letters, please visit masterbooksacademy.com.